Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are breaking down the absolute marvel that is the physical and chemical journey of a single human breath. We're going to explore the fascinating biological mechanics of human respiration, basically how life-sustaining oxygen actually gets into our cells, and exactly how we expel that hazardous metabolic waste product, carbon dioxide.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. I want you to take a deep breath right now. Seriously, do it with me. Feel your chest rise and fall. Now ask yourself, how did your body just seamlessly pull that off? I mean, it feels incredibly simple, right? Like second nature. But underneath that completely automated action is a ridiculously intricate dance of anatomy, physics, and biochemistry.
To understand how it all works, we'll follow an oxygen molecule through 5 distinct stages: your respiratory anatomy, the mechanics of breathing, the great gas exchange, transporting those gases, and finally, regulation and disorders.
Section 1. Your respiratory anatomy. Setting the stage.
Let's start at the macroscopic level, with the physical structures making every breath possible. Notice how your lungs are perfectly secured within this airtight thoracic chamber. They're actually wrapped in a double-layered pleura, complete with a lubricating pleural fluid right in between. This totally reduces friction as they expand and contract. And right below them, you've got the dome-shaped diaphragm, which, along with the rib cage, creates this absolutely critical anatomical setup. So the air travels a really precise route. It enters the nostrils, gets humidified in the nasal chamber, passes the pharynx and your larynx, your sound box, before dropping down into the cartilaginous trachea. From there, the whole system branches out like a tree. Primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi get smaller and smaller, finally ending in these tiny, highly vascularized little bags called alveoli.
Section 2. The mechanics of breathing. Pressure and volume.
Now let's look at the physical pump that pulls that air inside. Here's a wild fact. Lungs actually don't have muscles to inflate themselves. Nope. Instead, your diaphragm and intercostal muscles between your ribs act as a biological pump. When you inspire, your diaphragm contracts and flattens out, while those external intercostal muscles pull your ribs up and outward. This physically increases the volume of your entire chest cavity. And this is where it comes down to pure physics, specifically the pressure gradient. When inspiration increases the volume of your chest cavity, it creates a negative pressure vacuum. Your intrapulmonary pressure drops right below the atmospheric pressure outside, and that literally pulls air in. Conversely, expiration is just a passive return. The diaphragm relaxes, chest volume decreases, pressure rises, and boom, the air is forced back out.
Clinically, we measure these mechanics using a spirometer. A standard resting breath moves about 500 milliliters of air, roughly the size of a standard water bottle. That's your tidal volume. But we have massive reserves. You can forcefully inhale up to 3,000 extra milliliters, your inspiratory reserve volume. You can forcefully push out an extra 1,000 to 1,100 milliliters, your expiratory reserve volume. And brilliantly, your lungs keep a residual volume of about 1,200 milliliters, ensuring those tiny alveoli never completely collapse.
Section 3. The Great Gas Exchange, the alveolar level.
All right, so the physical movement of large volumes of air stops, and the incredibly delicate chemical magic begins. We've hit the end of the line for the incoming air, the alveoli. Here at the alveolar membrane, which by the way is miraculously less than a millimeter thick, oxygen and carbon dioxide are about to trade places. It's made of just a single layer of squamous epithelium, the capillary endothelium, and a tiny basement substance. It is the absolute perfect microscopic stage for diffusion.
But why do they trade places? Well, we have to talk about partial pressure. Think of it as the invisible driving force behind diffusion. Gases naturally want to move from a crowded area of high partial pressure to an emptier area of lower partial pressure. For oxygen, we denote this as PO2, and for carbon dioxide, PCO2. Just look at the steep gradients we're dealing with here. Oxygen's partial pressure drops from a high of 104 in the alveoli down to just 40 in deoxygenated blood. It's like a waterfall. That steep gradient literally forces the oxygen into the blood. At the exact same time, carbon dioxide has a higher pressure of 45 in the blood compared to 40 in the alveoli, naturally pushing it in the exact opposite direction so we can exhale it.
Section 4. Transporting gases in blood. The transit system.
Once across that ultra-thin membrane, our gases need a highly efficient way to commute to the distant tissues of your body. Check out the beautiful S-shaped curve of oxygen dissociation. This perfectly maps out how hemoglobin, that iron-rich protein in your red blood cells, acts like a microscopic delivery driver.
Up in the lungs, where oxygen pressure is high, hemoglobin eagerly loads up. But down in your tissues, where oxygen pressure is low and carbon dioxide is higher, the curve drops off. Hemoglobin smartly unloads the oxygen right where your active cells need it most. To put that transit system into perspective, a staggering 97% of your oxygen commutes by binding directly to that hemoglobin, forming oxyhemoglobin. Only a tiny 3% actually dissolves straight into the blood plasma. Carbon dioxide, though, it takes a totally different route home. It doesn't just hitch a ride the exact same way. Sure, about 20 to 25% binds to hemoglobin, but a massive 70% travels undercover as bicarbonate. This is all thanks to an enzyme in your red blood cells called carbonic anhydrase. It rapidly converts the CO2 into bicarbonate for a safe, stable trip back to the lungs, where the whole reaction just reverses so you can breathe it out.
Section 5, Regulation and Disorders, the Control Center.
It's wild to think your brain regulates this entire complex system without you even lifting a conscious finger. A specialized rhythm center in your brain's medulla acts as the main conductor. The moment a nearby chemosensitive area detects rising levels of carbon dioxide or hydrogen ions, a sure sign your tissues are working hard, it sounds the alarm. The medulla instantly commands your diaphragm and intercostal muscles to speed up your breathing and clear out the waste. And get this, your actual oxygen levels play a surprisingly insignificant role in this specific alarm system. It's all about clearing that CO2.
But of course, this system is incredibly delicate. If the bronchi and bronchioles get inflamed, we see conditions like asthma, causing wheezing and restricted breathing. Or, if the actual alveolar walls are physically damaged, very often due to cigarette smoking, a condition called emphysema develops. This literally and permanently destroys that vital surface area needed for the great gas exchange, leaving the body constantly starved for oxygen.
It really is an incredibly elegant process, isn't it? The precise anatomy, the raw physics of pressure gradients, and the brilliant biochemistry of hemoglobin, all working together on autopilot to execute this flawless exchange 12 to 16 times every single minute. Which, honestly, leaves you wondering, as we wrap up this explainer, what other unimaginably complex biological networks is your brain quietly orchestrating right this very second? Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next one.